So now that you know everything you need to know to write RTL, well, maybe not everything, but at least enough to write a simple state machine, I want to discuss a summary kind of the coding style that you need to adhere to in order to make sure that your design will actually work. So, as I said, an HDL is not just any other programming language. At least it shouldn't be. You have to treat it right. Okay? Verilog is very rich. It has commands and constructs that can let you do many things, and you can buy books that show every single type of thing you can do and every difference between Verilog 2001 and Verilog 95 and so forth. It was originally designed as a verification language. There's a lot of things you can do. But when you're designing hardware, you're designing these DUTs, you can't actually do whatever you want. It's very important to file these rules and coding styles to make synthesizable code. Okay, in the following slides, I'll introduce you to a few guidelines and rules, and we will revisit this later after learning about synthesis to learn some other things that you can get to know. Also, you have to have some hands-on experience to understand some of the things we'll be discussing. So let's just discuss some basic rules of how I recommend organizing your code. Okay, so each module should be in a separate file. You should name the file module.feed. That makes it really easy to find different modules, to take them between different, to move them between different projects, etc. So write each module in a different file. You don't have to be cheap and have only a few files or put a lot of things in one file. Okay? Always, always, always connect your modules with a dot form. And that's just in case, I mean, it makes it much more readable, and in case somebody changes the order of the inputs and outputs in the module header, it won't ruin your code. Write each input and output on a separate line. And the reason to do that is that it makes it a bit more readable, and you can comment what each signal is used for, as I showed before. Separate sequential and combinational logic. There are different coding styles. Some people like to make these big sequential blocks that have a lot of stuff going on. From my experience, each and every flip-flop is very important. You want to have personal knowledge of every flip-flop. You want to check that it was how it was synthesized, what came out, and so forth. You want to be friends with the flip-flops. Give them their own always block. Have always at pause edge clock or neg edge reset for an asynchronous reset, and have your sequential code, which should basically be state equals next state. Then all your combinational stuff, put it in its own block. Or assigns, you can have simple things. You can write a lot of stuff in assigns, but just separate. Don't put all kinds of cases and so forth inside your sequential blocks. It really makes a mess. It makes it hard to read. It makes it hard to recognize your flip-flops, and it's room for bugs. Assignment. So just to make sure you got the rules that I mentioned before, in a combinational always block, so the always at star type of stuff, you always use a blocking assignment, this equals. Okay? We highly recommend you to use this star. It will cause you not to have all kinds of stupid bugs in your code. And always use full case statements. If you don't have a full case statement, such as using one hot encoding or something like that, use default to propagate x's. Always use default to propagate x's and show in case there was a mistake, some case that you reached that you didn't want to. In a sequential, always at pause edge or whatever block, always use a non-blocking assignment, this smaller than and then equals. Okay, prefer to have each flip-flop in a separate always block. Really give these flip-flops their their right due respect, and prefer data enabling on all sampling. So if you can, it will help you save power. Never, 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 never assign a left-hand side for more than one always block. That will cause a contention, a short. It's a mistake. Okay, be really careful not to infer latches. This usually happens to rookie HDL designers until they get used to it. Okay, if an output is not explicitly assigned by every signal in the sensitivity list, a latch will be inferred to save the previous state of the signal. Okay, for example, what happens if cell equals 1, 1? We don't have cell equals 1, 1 here, right? We have to have a latch to save the state. The same will happen if an output is not assigned in all branches of an if-else block. An if must have an else, or it's actually for every left-hand side assignment, we must have both an if and an else to make sure that it's assigned from every single state of that if statement. If not, we need a latch to save the previous state, and we probably didn't want that latch there. And stay away from tri-states. Don't assign a z. Digital designers don't like it. In some places you will use them, but that's in very specific places where you really know what you're doing and your company decided that that's what you have to do. Okay, stick with one reset type. The purpose of reset is to bring your design into a well-known state, such as in our state machine, it was to bring it into that idle state and to bring the counter to 0 at the beginning. It is desirable to have every flip-flop resettable, whether or not required. It costs a little bit more in area, but really it's worth it. Again, it keeps us away from weird bugs that are really hard to find and so forth. So just make all your flip-flops resettable. Okay. We usually use asynchronous reset, always at pause edge clock or neg edge reset, but there are a lot of people who like synchronous reset, and that's also fine. Just make sure you don't mix and match them. There are a lot of arguments between the async and the synchronous reset guys. You can read one. I think I put one of the papers about it on the references below. Okay, another important thing that I've seen a lot of rookies make a mistake: do not put logic on your reset signal. Assign something equals a and reset, or always at blah blah blah, you have reset on the right hand side. No, reset, like clock, is a very special signal. It should have no logic running on it. Nothing should be done to it unless, again, our architect tells us we need to do some sort of special clock gating or reset gating or something like that. But these are very specific things that we know about very well, and they're in the architecture of our whole system. Parameterize your design. Pretty code is code that is completely parameterized. There are two options. We can use compiler directives, macros. There's defines, includes, if-defs. They're really nice to make our code take care of a lot of different cases. Okay, you can put all the define statements in an external define file and just use an include, and then make it adaptable to different technologies and so forth, different projects. Okay, parameters or local params. So parameters, we saw that we can pass a parameter to an instance, so they're really nice to use when we need to override something like the counter width we saw before. Local params are better for enumerating type of constants such as the encoding in FSMs. So we don't ever want to have somebody override them, so we should use a local param and not a parameter. There's something called a generate statement in Verilog, which helps you make code that can produce a lot of things. It's a bit complicated. It's out of the scope of what I want to teach you today, but you know, you can read about how to use them, and you may need to use them in the future. Always encode the FSM state with hard-coded values. You have to choose between different ways: binary, gray code, one-hot, etc. There are, again, lots of philosophies on this, lots of papers about the pros and cons of each type, but encode them with hard-coded values, give them names, makes your code much more readable, and that helps us not make really bad bugs. Write readable code. That's really important. Always use indentation. Okay. And naming conventions. So this is a toughie. I don't have one winning answer, but you should always keep to a naming convention, decide what your naming convention is, and use it across your code. There are different types. There's C style, Pascal style, and modulo style if you're using these underscores to separate words, or if you're using this camel case where you have capital letters and lowercase letters that separate words. Just try to keep to one of them and not mix and match between them. It really drives you nuts if you mix and match between the two. There is no right answer. I found online two recommended styles. One's from NetFPGA, gave this very Verilog coding guidelines. They have a kind of a nice style that I like. And there's something from ETH Zurich, the VHDL naming conventions. It's, in my opinion, a bit ugly, but it's very, it keeps a good order, and it it lets you make all kinds of macros that can parse your code and highlight different inputs and outputs and signals that belong to each other, and even do automatic connections of things. So it's worth taking a look at, even though each and every signal gets a lot of characters that are kind of hard to read. So just some helpful documents and references. So as I said, I put a reference on wires versus regs and the whole argument about them. Something about signed arithmetic in Verilog 2001s, what to watch out for. Some Verilog coding guidelines, as I mentioned, from NET FPGA. MIT has some nice lectures on Verilog, and there's a lot of papers in the Synopsys users groups and the Cadence CDN Live that you can find online. Something from Stuart Sutherland and Don Mills is called Standard Gotchas. There are actually 2 versions of this. Once you get to know a bit more Verilog, you should sit there and read them. They're pretty long, but they'll tell you a lot of things to stay away from and how to do them better. So that's all I have to tell about Verilog for now, and we can continue on next week with synthesis.